I'm Carol Carnes. Welcome to Living Consciously. Well, I'm talking about change today. Everything must change. It's the nature of life. Things grow and expand and evolve or disappear, devolve, and we release them out of our life. It has been the saving grace of my life to notice how quickly things can change and do. You know, I remember someone saying one time, all healings are instantaneous. It's the process that leads up to it that feels like it took time. But in the moment that it happens, it's in that moment. It's instantaneous. So things change very quickly. And in our world today, if you watch the news and you're interested in politics, you see how quickly things are changing. And the reason is there's something underneath that's driving our collective consciousness is pushing out what doesn't belong with it. And what we are seeking is a world that works for everyone. We're seeking peace and justice and freedom and liberty and justice for all, just like our founding fathers put down as the way we want to live in this country. So we're seeing that happen, and it's all to the good, but let's talk about our personal lives. Now, I've lived long enough to have been married and divorced and raised children by myself and traveled the world and lived in many different states and had all kinds of different positions. And I notice that when I feel stuck, it's when I'm forgetting that everything must change. And what precedes it is that consciousness, not only collectively, but personally. And so when I feel stuck, and what does that mean? Well, it's just like, it looks like nothing's going to change. That's when I go back within myself and begin to rethink my position in life. I begin to rethink who I am in the process of this experience I'm having, and I begin to rethink how things happen. That's the great thing. You know, in modern New Thought spirituality that I teach, we're not asking, why did this happen? We're asking, how do things happen? And the answer, of course, is from the inside out. One of the great mystics of ancient times, Meister Eckhart, who's much revered in today's world by thinking people, said that truth never comes to us from the outside in. It comes to us from the inside out. And he was referring, it was a part of a passage on wisdom. How do we attain wisdom? From the inside, not from the outside. So the fact that things change very quickly has to do with you and me holding. When I say faith, I don't mean the old-fashioned way of thinking about faith. It's just believing in something you don't know whether it exists or not. I'm talking about an informed faith that we know that our consciousness, our awareness, our thoughts produce our experience, produce the quality of our experience, or our experience of experience, right? So if we are constantly, and by constantly I mean we walk around with this kind of attitude, that something wonderful is trying to happen all the time, that something wonderful is trying to happen through every human being on the planet, that something wonderful is trying to happen by means of you and me, and we are equipped to bring forth from the inside, as Eckhart said, to the outside, that's something wonderful. Now, we call it wonderful, but what it really is a greater good. And this is life's tendency. We don't ever want to forget, life is never against itself. Life is constantly for itself, and it supports itself. And it brings forth that which is the highest prevailing idea that it has to work with in the moment, and that means in you and in me. So life is constantly for the greater good. Now, I want you to look at history and notice how dictators, evil people don't last a long time. You know what I'm thinking of? I'm thinking of the Berlin Wall. Now, how long did that stand? About 30-some years. 33 years, I think, which is a long time if you're separated from your loved ones or if you're living under duress or living in a regime that disallows your freedom. But to life, to the cosmos, it's nothing. It's like a nanosecond, right? Why did it come down? It stood and stood and stood and stood, and then boom, it was gone. Because an idea changed. And that idea was driven by groups of people who were praying for it to come down, who were wanting it to come down, who envisioned it coming down. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but there were 7,000 advanced meditators from the Siddha Yoga tradition who went to that area prior to it, the wall coming down, and sat for, I don't know, a week or so in meditation together. And they changed the field. If this is new stuff, come and see me on Sunday morning. This is what we talk about. It's about quantum physics. It's about changing the energy of a field, and the field responds. So this has been documented as what happens when 1% of the population meditates in groups. Then that area they live in, the crime rate drops and everything happens for the better. There's data on this. This is not happy talk. This is real stuff. Okay, so the Berlin Wall came down because the idea changed, the prevailing belief changed, and therefore it could no longer stand. Now this is true in your own life. There's nothing holding up the walls of our loneliness, our ill health, our financial problems, but our own beliefs. And so we want to be, as I started to say, walking around with a sense of something wonderful is trying to happen and knowing the greater good for all people. You see, the more inclusive we are, the more energy we're generating, the more we're in line with life's natural tendency to evolve the whole species all at once, to bring about a greater good for the whole. Because Spirit, or God, if you will, doesn't see us as separate. We are all its expression. And so what is good for me is good for everyone. As I prosper, so everybody prospers, in the sense that my life touches other lives. There's an old saying, everything I do prospers me, and everything I do prospers everyone I meet. That's a great, something wonderful wanting to happen, isn't it? Yeah. So once an idea takes form, well, the idea of America was an idea. And once it took form, it began to grow and expand. It began to evolve, and it's still doing that. And that's true of your personal experience in life as well. Once you got an idea that you were greater than your past experience, for example, your whole life got better, didn't it? That idea extended itself into your relationships, into how you identified yourself at work or in your family or just in general. And how we identify ourselves speaks volumes. It precedes us into any room we walk into, or any situation we walk into, or any relationship we walk into. Who we think we are, who we know ourselves to be. So if we have changed the idea of who we are relative to our childhood, and we have disconnected from it in the sense that we know that what happened to me isn't me, it was just something that happened, then that begins to change everything in our life. Self-identity, you hear me say this all the time, self-identity is the number one issue that is keeping us from prospering, being vitally healthy, having loving, juicy, supportive relationships. There's nothing standing in the way. There's no wall except the ones we've erected with our own lack of self-love and self-respect and our belief system about how things happen. I want to pick up on that because a lot of people love themselves and they feel worthy, but they have a misunderstanding of how the universe works. So they're still hanging on to old superstitious ideas about some vengeful God in the sky or about something called the devil, silly ideas that were metaphors but were taken literally, which caused a lot of problems and still do. So our take on the universe is as important as our self-identity. very important that we rethink how things happen and we stop denying that we have anything to do with the quality of our life, because we absolutely do. So I said, once an idea begins, it takes form in us, it extends into everything in our life, it gets bigger and more inclusive. See, this is why when you think big, and by that I mean more expansively, and you think of, instead of hoping one something will happen, you realize there are many avenues through which your dream can come true, then you have choices. You don't just get one, you get many. And you get to weigh and measure and see which one is right for you, because the universe is very inclusive and very expansive. So when an idea starts to take form, it gathers everything unto itself that is like itself, and that means people, places, opportunities, money, whatever is necessary, and gives us many, many choices. Everything begins to change. So there's the principle that's involved on a grand scale. Think of it this way. What is good for the whole is always responded to and made greater. There's a tendency in life to support what is good for the whole. What is good for humanity is good for all individuals. Wouldn't you agree with that? If it's good for all of humanity, it's good for individuals. Now, if it's good for an individual, wouldn't it be good for all of humanity? So it works both ways. We want to have the big idea for humanity, but we also want to implement it in our own life and be that which we seek for everyone, right? But there's some old biblical stuff about the blind leading the blind. Somebody has to be prospering for others to see prosperity exists, right? Well, might as well be us. Okay, so here's the principle about how the universal field of possibility works. Oh, there's so much I could say about this, but I'm going to say this first. Intelligence responds to intelligence. Love responds to love, right? So, and all the qualities we seek in life, peace, justice, if they are active in us, there's a correlative in the universe. So the universe seems to say, yes, my beloved, in whom I am well pleased. Here's some more of that. You know, because the field itself, try to think of the field of imagination as a quivering potentiality. It isn't actually active as it is holding in abeyance, if you will, possibility. But those possibilities have to be activated by us. So it isn't enough to just want something. We need to download it, if you will, and bring it through us as our activity. Intelligence responds to intelligence. Prosperity responds to prosperity. So we need to be doing that which we seek for the whole world and that which we seek for ourselves in greater measure. And once we get active with it, it begins to expand and grow. It's a principle. We'll talk more about that when we come back. We're going to take a little break. Boy, that first part went really fast today. Everything changes so quickly. It's now time for our commercials. And we love our sponsors and we thank them in advance for supporting this station and this program. So come back to us in a few minutes, listen to what they have to offer, and we'll see you in a few. Don't go away.
This is a national healthcare alert from the Health Hotline. If you, a family member, or a loved one suffers from knee pain and have Medicare as your primary insurance, we've got great news. you could qualify for a pain-relieving knee brace at little or no cost to you. Get free delivery, and all the paperwork is handled by our accredited suppliers at no charge to you. We also have other pain-relieving braces available for shoulder, ankle, and your back. Call the number on your screen right now to immediately receive a pain-relieving brace at little or no cost.
Attention homeowners, apartment complexes and business parks and homeowners associations. Now is the best time to make your property beautiful again. Since 1967, Gonzalez Landscaping has offered beautiful professional landscaping services to all of southern New Mexico. Our team has been designing and installing landscapes for over 47 years. Where quality is an obsession, Gonzalez Landscaping is locally owned and operated. We are licensed commercial, residential specialists dedicated to providing reliable and quality service. We offer residential and commercial landscaping design, full lawn, tree and shrub care, with annuals and perennials, tree and palm trimming, spring and fall cleanups, mulching and more. Let us do the work at prices you can afford. We service all of Las Cruces. We are New Mexico's premier commercial landscaping and residential landscaping company. Visit us online at gonzalesnursery.com or call us for a free estimate. 575-382-7272.
Welcome to La Buena Vida Women's Club, located away from the crowds but close to home. Come in throughout the day for Jazzercise, the world's dance fitness leader for nearly 40 years. Treat yourself to a relaxing massage, or unwind in the lounge area or outside on the balcony with friends. La Buena Vida Women's Club, located and designed with women in mind. For information, call Diane at 650-9721.
Hi everyone, we're back. And if you just joined us, we've been talking today about how everything must change, but mostly about how quickly things can change. I've noticed that in my life. Going in a certain direction, wanting something different, holding to the idea, and boom, it shifts and changes. And there are principles involved, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in this half. All right, so things change, or right themselves, if you want to put it that way, when a corresponding field of consciousness, or a group of people, or an individual, but let's start with a group, is alive and active, and that means people are really believing something, they're standing up for something, they're supporting something, and they're gathering energy together, and they're making it visible and audible about what it is they're supporting. We see this all the time, and that's what causes that's what caused the shift in civil rights, in the women's movement, in gay rights, all of the things that are more inclusive, that are for the greater good for all of humanity, were ideas that groups of people took and made happen because it was an idea whose time had come. It was a good idea. Equal rights is always a good idea. All right, but personally, it's the same thing. We talked about the Berlin Wall, how it stood for years and years and years and separated people, and on one side was horrendous, were horrendous living conditions and no freedoms. On the other side, it was like the West. When the wall came down, people walked over, freedom was restored. People said, that's amazing. It seems amazing because we thought it would never change, except not all of us thought that. So people were praying for it, they were hoping for it, they were believing in it. It had to happen. All right, so our part is to know what is good, what is true, and what is beautiful. And so much of this is spirituality, but we're not talking about theology. We're not talking about religious dogma. We're talking about noticing how beautifully, intricately nature works, and how it produces beauty, and it produces more life, and it supports itself from within. This is how we teach kids. We say, inside the acorn, there's an oak tree hidden in there. It knows how to come out and become, so do you. There's an acorn of power in here. There is a center to you that is beyond limitation. It's called your imagination. It's called your creative mind. It's called the universal aspect of what you are as a being. It's called your connection to the source. Whatever that source may look like to you, it's greater than any idea you have of it, believe me. That's why the Buddhists don't have a name for God, because they say you can't comprehend it with a human mind. It's infinite, right? Which is true. But it represents itself as a field of potential. All right? So we draw from that field some basic ideas. What are the basic ideas for humans to work with are love, joy, peace, vitality, power, intelligence. And they transmute themselves into human experiences. Love becomes relationships of all kind. Vitality becomes health and well-being. Joy becomes peace. Peace and joy they go together. And abundance becomes personal supply. So we're always using these qualities that are part of our spiritual DNA, and they're part of the DNA of nature. You see it everywhere. And they become our personal experience. So you and I take those ideas and make them personal. See, this is the thing. We're always working with universal power, but we're making it personal. It doesn't do things to us. It does them through us. So, it's kind of simple, even though it's a very deep subject. If you want more love, be more loving. Express more love. Expect more. Extend it. Include more people in your love. You can't have a real joyful, loving relationship if you're a racist or a bigot or a sexist or a homophobe, because it's an energy, and you are tight, and you are blocking people, and you are putting up the Berlin Wall in your mind. So you may have a relationship, but I'll bet you have to control it. I'll bet you got your thumb on everybody, or you're the victim on the end of one. Because if you don't change your mind about everybody, you can't be who you really are. You can't have what you're really naturally supposed to have. Every human being on this planet is a valuable expression of God, period, over and out. And that's it. And that's my truth, and I'm sticking to it. Okay, so the way we live our life, what we teach, what we stand up for, what we believe, our purchases, our consumption, what we do with recycling, all of that is an idea that says, I'm a part of a system. I'm important to it. My ideas matter, and they count. And I contribute at the highest level I can. So everything you do is an indication of your prevailing belief system, you see. Your prevailing belief system is creating your life and every detail in it. So let's ask ourselves today, what do I support? It'll show up in what you buy. It'll show up in how you spend money. It'll show up in what you contribute to, what your attendance at various activities. Maybe you support the arts and public television and public radio, which I certainly do. Various ministries such as this one, of charitable organizations, political organizations, people who help children in need, give education to girls the world over. A couple of years ago, I discovered through the Mercy Corps, which is one of the best charities on the planet, that you could send 6 girls, this was Nepal, Kathmandu, you could send 6 girls to school for 6 years for $300. People spend that much on dinner out, in LA, or a new jacket or something. 6 girls for 6 years get educated, and the education of girls is key to our future, believe me, that this has to happen. Girls the world over need education because they have something to bring. They're part of the human family, and we all have wonderful gifts to bring. So what do you support? Subtler maybe, but equally effective in promoting certain aspects of life that we desire are the thoughts we have about the world and other people, which extend into our way of responding to both. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Do you walk around in a state of low-grade anger about what you see on the news, or fear, or sadness? Do you blame certain groups of people for the state of things? Because believe me, we're all in this together. There's no one group that's responsible for any of it. Are we quick to judge those in need and say, well, they're being lazy, or they're drug addicted, or they're worthless people? You can't think that way and prosper, and you can't think that way and solve the problems that produce the experiences those folks are having. I was on welfare when I was a young mother, and my husband left us and never paid child support. I had a full-time job, but it just wasn't enough money to put food on the table and pay my rent. I had to go on assistance to dependent children, and believe me, coming from an upper middle class family, that was a blow. But it was, a woman said to me, you know what? The welfare system was designed for people like you who just can't quite make it yet. I got off of it in a couple of years, but I really felt blessed by it. So don't judge people who are needing assistance temporarily until they get. I had a rough childhood. I had to sort it out. I was emotionally a victim. So, open up your heart and mind to people and bring them in and call it all good. We're all in this together. Everything must change, but it changes to reflect what we believe. All right, that's enough for today, I think. If you want to hear more about this kind of teaching and how you can make your life infinitely better by changing how you think about yourself, come to one of our Sunday meetings. It's at 10:30 a.m. at the Mesilla Community Center on Calle de Santiago. And it's a very comfortable environment. We don't make you stand up or sing or do anything. We just welcome everybody. Everybody's invited to our center. And we talk about these ideas. Also, you can watch these on YouTube. Tell your friends about it. Tell them to get on YouTube and search Carol Carnes or Living Consciously. Make a donation to us. Support us. We're doing good work in the world, and we are a nonprofit, and we do depend on donations. So that about covers it. I really would love to meet you in person, and so I hope to see you on Sunday morning. In the meantime, you stay tuned in to your higher self and watch how things change for the better. See you next time.